Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. This is our latest episode of the Scale Up Stateside podcast. I know this session has been in high demand, and it's definitely a topic that we get asked about again and again at PGC. So obviously you'll have seen when signing up, we're going to be touching on how to book more client meetings in the US. And not only do we have the amazing Scott, who is the VP of Sales at SourceWhale, joining us. He's going to talk all about this, but I think what's really key is that these are all kind of data-driven strategies. So there's a lot of data behind why these are working, and kind of the strategies that recruiters can really instill to maximize the client meetings that they're booking in the US. Before we get started, Scott, I thought it would be really great to hear a little bit from you, a little bit about your background, especially kind of coming from such an amazing sales background in the US, and then we can kind of touch on SourceWhale itself before diving into the strategies.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. Super happy to be here. So I am the VP of sales for SourceWhale in the US. So I run our US team. It's been a lot of fun. I've been here for a little bit over a year. And before that, I was at ZoomInfo for 13 years. So I was running a sales team. We did well over 100 million in revenue. And my main focus was the staffing and recruiting market. So, I've worked with some of the biggest staffing and recruiting companies out there and brought them on, like Adecco, Randstad, Kelly, sort of these massive accounts, but also really, really small accounts as well. And so while I've never actually been in the staffing and recruiting world, I have talked to people pretty much every working day about their go-to-market strategy and how they sell and how they go out and book meetings. So I feel like I know what a day in the life is like.
Yeah. And also I think it's so amazing when you work with a variety of different clients, you can actually get a really nice holistic view from kind of all sizes, industries, like what's working, and kind of what others can do to maximize that. And in terms of SourceWhale, I mean, I can't believe when I was having a look, only 3 years ago, you guys launched, UK based, obviously have expanded into the US really rapidly. And at the heart of what you guys do is all around kind of automation and outreach, kind of specifically in the recruitment and staffing space.
Yep, that's it. That we only work with companies in staffing and recruiting market. And we help them generate more meetings, whether it's on the BD side, which tends to be a big focus with our clients now, but also on the candidate side as well.
Yeah, I think I was reading and I listened to a few webinars before we jumped on this today. Amazingly, in the last 3 years, you've had over 52 million messages sent through SourceWhale and over 1 million client meetings booked, which is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it's just going up to, I feel like we're changing that slide deck every month. It's like 4 million. I mean, it's just like constantly.
But obviously off the back of that, it's allowed you guys to gather such a depth of data points, see what's working well, see what's been tweaked, look at all of these campaigns. So despite you having a ton of data, I think today in the next 25 minutes, we're going to try and get through 5 specifically data-driven strategies that you guys have kind of seen results in for booking more client meetings in the US. So we can kind of jump straight into the first one, which is all around marketing candidates in the US, kind of marketing them into end clients, kind of how you're presenting them. So do you want to kind of kick us off with what you guys have seen as kind of winning successes and kind of the strategy behind that?
Yeah, and this is probably the most anecdotal piece of feedback or data that we have, just because it's really hard to evaluate. But we run a lot of trials here in the US, and a lot of the focus right now is going out and generating new business meetings, really going out for business development. And what we have seen is for the trials that we're doing, the ones that are going marketing a candidate, shopping a candidate, whatever you want to call it, MPC campaigns, those are performing extraordinarily high. They're booking a ton of meetings compared to just a value prop. Hey, here is what we do. And I think there's a variety of different reasons. It's really hard to stand out with a value prop and catch someone's attention, right? Yeah. You're just really asking someone for their time. Whereas I feel like if you're bringing an awesome candidate, right, you're putting something in front of them that's intriguing, that can capture their attention. Yeah. And then there's also some other things, like it allows you to be really persistent, right? Because if I'm just coming with a value prop driven message, like absolutely, like hammering someone over and over and over again about your value prop can get a little bit old. But if it's like, hey, this candidate's going to be off the market, it gives you this window to really go after that person until you get an answer.
Yeah, a bit of urgency. And I think it also helps you demonstrate already from the get-go that you know what that client is all about, what talent might be attractive to them. I think we actually say to our clients, if you've got a product, you're going to need to find a customer. Like, it's better to get your product first, then get your customer, and then go and look for a product for them. So actually to have a candidate and create some urgency, like, we know how quickly the market moves in the US as well. 2 weeks at most, people will give notice before moving roles. So again, it's creating that urgency. Do you have any data on kind of volume of candidates that are shared or that get good response rates, I guess, from marketing candidates?
I mean, like, I don't have any data around like how much you should be doing it, but like, if I were to come up with a process, like, it has to start by talking to candidates, right? And then I would just, once I find a really good candidate, I would find companies that align and start reaching out to decision makers. And I think a lot of people, they might think a little bit too much about the candidate that they're trying to place, but in reality, all you're trying to do is generate a conversation. Hey, like, I use someone. Yeah, I use someone internally, but like, I might have something for you in a month, right? Like, just little nuggets, these little trails that you can get here and there. That's all we're trying to do is stand out, right? And when you do that, you are standing out. I mean, the best email I have ever gotten was from someone in the UK sending me an awesome candidate where I just looked at this person. I'm like, wow, like, I really want to talk to this person. And I see a lot of junk. Like, we hire a lot. And so like, I get a lot of junk too, where it's like, hey, like, I'm from Michigan too. It's like, okay, like, cool. Like, that's not like really, like, that's not really valuable to me, but like, this awesome candidate that someone sent me was really valuable. And like, I want to talk to her.
Yeah. It's an easier kind of, I guess, talk track as well. Like, if you're just sending someone a value proposition, what are they going to say? Like, yeah, let's jump on a meeting, and you present the information that you've just shared. Whereas actually it can be slightly more kind of transactional and quicker to have a conversation if you've got a candidate there to pique interest.
Yeah, you're coming with a solution, right? Like, you're not asking for time. You're coming to them with something of value. Whereas I feel like a lot of, these buyers, what they're inundated with is just hundreds of emails with sales reps and robots nowadays asking for their time. And here you're putting something of value, real value in front of them and just letting them say yes or no.
Yeah, no, definitely. Completely agree. And in terms of kind of, I guess, that being the first step, I know you have so much data around this, but do you tend to see that being quite a good opener, getting in with clients, kind of getting, I guess, kind of the first step of one of the multi kind of touch points?
It has to be the first step. And then I would just build a campaign around that person, and I would condense it into a short period of time, right? Like, a lot of the problem with like a value prop driven campaign is the persistence is really hard. Like, you have to spread it out or else it becomes really annoying. Whereas if you're coming with a candidate that could be off the market, like, you have a real reason why you want to get in touch with them, and you have this eagerness to you, which will stand out compared to just something that takes, a month or two to run out a campaign.
Yeah, and a reason to check back in, did you check it out? Like, they're not on the market for much longer, etc. So step one, marketing your candidates. And then I know a lot of your data is kind of driven on the importance of multi-channel. I think I read a stat that was saying, you had a 112% increase for meetings booked in the US, where actually people had, 3 or more channels they were using versus just one. It'd be great to just kind of hear some data on that, and what of the channels that are available to use you see most effective for recruiters.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think like the channels that most people are using would be email, LinkedIn, whether it's connection request or an email, text message, and phone. Now, other people have there could be other crazy channels that I've never thought of, and there's other ways to reach out to people, but like, I would say those are the main ones. And what we're seeing in our data is that for campaigns that include 3 channels versus 1, right? Those campaigns are booking at almost 2 times the amount of meetings, right? And it really, I think it makes sense, right? Like, I think the most overused channel nowadays, especially when you're trying to book meetings, is email. And so when you think
Yeah.
about our buyers, they're absolutely inundated with emails. And I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure a lot of the people on this call have seen it where, there might be, someone that has sent a buyer 10 emails just stacked on top of each other. And when
Yeah.
you look at that, it's just automatic. You think automation, you think robot, you think this
Yeah.
isn't a real
Hit
person that's
delete.
just sent me. Yeah, it's like, okay, like this is the 10th time you've sent me an email and like I haven't responded to the other 9. So like I'm not going to here. So like we try to mix it up, and what we want our clients to do, and this is all based on the data, is like, how can I follow up an email with a LinkedIn connection request? If they don't respond to that, a phone call, maybe a text message immediately following. So they say, this isn't a robot. This isn't automated. This is a real person trying to drive a conversation with me, so that you're standing out across everything that's not just in their inbox from other recruiting agencies.
Yeah.
It's across every other person that's just going to this buyer's inbox.
Yeah. Other spaces that they're spending time and kind of living in their ecosystem. And just on that, just because I know it can be slightly different in the UK, in terms of text, like my colleagues in the US, they don't really use WhatsApp, whereas WhatsApp in the UK is pretty much, I'd say, like the number one source of kind of direct messaging. Would you say text above, I guess, other forms or kind of instant chat would be the most effective form of, I guess, maybe a less formal way?
So my bosses are in the UK and Scotland. So I communicate with them over WhatsApp, but those are really the only people I communicate with over WhatsApp. Everyone else, it's like I'm texting them. So I would say text in the US is definitely a great channel. And I think you have to be careful with it, right? Like if I'm reaching out to a new prospect, I am not going to lead off with a text message. I think that's a little intrusive.
Yeah.
But I do think that after you've sent an email, after you've connected on LinkedIn, after you've called that person, sending a really polite text message, as long as there's urgency in the campaign, can be a really good way to drive an answer. I think like the real key to doing a good text message is being over the top polite, right? Like something that is impossible for someone to get mad at you. Like a lot of politeness goes a long way. And it's just like, wow, like how can they react negatively to this as long as I'm really polite? So that needs to be the tone of the text messages, but we do see it working. And again, just not the lead off, like it should be part of a campaign, but a little bit deeper after they might know your name.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good point. And I guess that ties back into actually having a reason to contact them in the first place and having a candidate rather than just, your USP or your value proposition. Is going to help your journey further down the kind of channel as well.
Yeah, it's like hard to say like, hey, did you see my email? Like we've been in business for 15 years. Like it's sort of like a hard ass to get the meeting.
And we've just had a question kind of come in. Is it important to use text using a US number? Would that kind of, I guess, affect open rates, reply rates?
I honestly don't think it does. I think the content's more important, and then the fact that they know you. Like honestly, it's for me, like I get a lot of US calls to my cell phone and I'm just like, When I see a UK number, it's honestly like, this is more on the phone call side. It's a little bit more intriguing to me. So like if I was calling, I would definitely leave a voicemail to say, hey, like I'm a real person, so that they know like it's in conjunction with your other emails and your LinkedIn message. And that way, if a text does come, they'll be more likely to know who you are.
Yeah, no. And just there's another question that's been kind of popped in the chat. And I guess this maybe relates to you saying kind of don't want to be too intrusive and you want to make sure you're really polite. Max has asked, is it okay to text a personal number if we can't find kind of a work number?
Yeah, for sure. I think people in the US are used to it. And I mean, like at the end of the day, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like you get stung a little, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people play it really safe. They play it really safe. And when you play it safe, like you might not get a lot of no's, but like I'd rather get a no if it means that I might get a yes on the next one. Like I'd rather just stand out so that they know who I am and they know that I'm coming after them rather than just playing it super safe and never getting a reply.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Kind of making yourself stand out because, it can be saturated out there. And I think unless you are thinking really kind of deeply behind your campaigns and your outreach, like a lot of it is pretty much like for like. So you need to have a point of difference. And just kind of following on from that, like multi-touch campaigns. So should we touch a little bit? I know we've kind of said multi-channel, but multi-touch and the different touch points. What are you guys seeing behind all of that?
Yeah, so we've analyzed every 1 step, 2 step, 5 step, 8 step, 10 step, 20 step, and we've taken the averages across all of our client base and those 52 million messages. And what we find is that the reply rate is exponential as you get up to 8 steps. And so we really gear our clients to go for 8 steps when they're doing any business development campaign. Now, once you get to 8 steps, as you're adding steps, the reply rates and the meeting rates do go up, but the rate drops off. So it starts to slow down considerably, right? And so just think like if you can get 8, you're getting your best bang for your buck, right? Like those are 8 great steps. So we want everyone to get to 8 steps, which seems really hard. But if you think about it, it could be a few emails, a LinkedIn connection request, followed by an email, a text message, and a couple of calls. It's really not that crazy if you're mixing up the channels. Like I said earlier, though, you don't want to do 8 emails. Like 8 emails is really annoying, and it seems really, it just seems really challenging. Like, how can I build out the content? If I'm just thinking about like a basic LinkedIn connection, like, hey, I sent you an email yesterday, just wanted to connect here too. Like that's a free touch that's just standing out. So 8 is what we want our clients to get to. And what we're seeing is that 64% of the meetings that are happening within our platform are happening on step 3 and after. However, a lot of the people we talk to are giving up at step 3, right? Like they're just like, I reach out 3 times, and if they don't respond, like I'm done. And so they're really giving up when the getting's good. And so, it can be hard to stay diligent. It can be hard to stay on track. It can be hard to look at someone and say, man, this is the 8th time that I'm reaching out to this person. Obviously, like we think automation goes a long way in helping you there, but like stick to it, believe in it, come up with the process, and just live by that process to make sure that you're not going shallow towards a lot of people, but you're going really deep into a lot of accounts with a lot of messages, because that's how you're eventually going to drive a response.
Yeah. And I guess it's just human nature, really. Like if you're not getting responses, you do tend to drop off kind of with that outreach. You say, by point 3, you might be like, okay, this is going nowhere. So to kind of hear that data behind it and kind of see those stats is huge. And I mean, that's like, definitely where, sorry, go.
Yeah. Task, when you're looking in your CRM and it's like your 8th time, your 7th time, it's tough to do it. It's tough to bring yourself, but like those are the ones that if you just stay diligent and you just do it, like it will yield results. It will yield results compared to just like, I'm just going to find someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're just constantly finding other people.
The frequency of those outreaches kind of, I guess, when you build out those campaigns, you'll kind of put in, how many days after, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days a week. What do you tend to see? Do you have any data behind, I guess, the frequency of the touch points?
Yeah, I think like within like marketing a candidate or shopping a candidate, you could do it within 2 weeks. If you have something that's more value driven, or it's more of like a referral, like 4 weeks is a good amount of time. You can also think about it in like pairing steps together, right? So let's say I call them on day 3. Instead of leaving a voicemail, I can have a text message go out immediately afterwards. So that's almost like 2 steps in one day. Like, hey, just tried you. Figured a text message would be easier for you to reply to. Did you see my email about that candidate I sent over? And so you can pair them, or like I call them and then I follow it up with an email, so that it's not just, 10 days and they're getting a message from me 8 out of the 10 days. Maybe they're getting a message from me 5 out of those 10 days over a 2-week span.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know you guys have got an amazing kind of 1-pager we're going to share with everyone on this call around touch points and frequency between each of them. So we'll definitely get that distributed. And I think especially with the kind of increase of AI, automation, kind of tech platforms, a lot of people are very conscious about personalization and making sure it doesn't look like spam. It doesn't look like a massive email campaign that's gone out to thousands of contacts that have been scraped off of a database. What is your kind of take, view, input on kind of the personalization piece?
Yeah, we have found that if you add a line of personalization to a campaign, to a message, you are going to double the amount of responses that you get. And I think that is because we are in a world where people are just inundated with canned, generic, automatic emails. And so we highly encourage people to add a line of personalization. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be well thought out. It just has to say, I'm a person here, right? So like if you lead out, it's like, hey, I saw like you went to this university, or hey, like, like you're in this city. Have you ever been to this restaurant? Like anything that say like, I am a real person and not a robot might get the rest of your email read. And that is something that we really, really want our clients to do, because it's just something that stands out. It's something that they're not used to. And I always think about an email, like the first line of an email is just designed to get the second line read. The second line is designed to get the third line read. And so if you start out with a really good line that's like, hey, I'm a real person, trust me, I've done like a tiny bit of research, you're just more likely to stand out, have them know who you are.
Yeah, that intrigue. And again, it's an easy response for them. It's, if I don't want to engage in the second part, like I can talk to them about that restaurant that they mentioned in my city. And actually, everyone's human. Like the more kind of personal you can make it, and the human touch.
I would say lead off with it. Like what I see people doing is like maybe doing personalization later in a campaign, or let's say they have a message, they put the personalization at the very end. Whatever you do, like lead off with it, right? Like you want to be memorable. Like, and so like, I would say like the first line should have that personalization in there to say, hey, I'm a person. I've done a little bit of research and I have a strong why as to why I want to reach out. And then we're talking about multi-touch too. Like if you do nice personalization, you put a little bit of thought into it, you can really build a campaign around it. Like your second email could be the next day. It's like, hey, did you happen to see my email about this yesterday? Or it's just, like that's also personalized. So do it. It will stand out. I would say have a structure though. Like it's hard to look at someone and come up with a different reason why you want to reach out to every single person. So, come up with 3 to 5 reasons that like stand out to people. And then just when you're looking at their LinkedIn profile, see what jumps out the page the most, and then sort of stick to your process of how you're going to insert that.
Yeah. Make that connection. Yeah. Really good point. We had another question kind of come in. If you finish the 8 steps and you have no response, do you just do the same campaign using another candidate with 8 steps again?
I think you could, right? I think there's a variety of different ways to do it. You could do that. You could reach out to other people in the organization potentially. The other thing that you could do is just start like reaching out to them with a different sort of a cadence. So maybe you wait and then send a different candidate, or maybe you wait and then 30 days later you send them something that is more value driven, right? I think that it's once you've hit them 8 steps, I think it's time to cool down a little bit. Right?
Yeah,
Like they didn't get an answer. Yeah, so maybe like every 30 days, every 45 days, just sending them one off.
Yeah, that's fair. And we've had another question from Mark. What conversion ratios are you currently seeing at SourceWhale? I.e. out of the... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It just said, i.e. out of 100 target contacts, how many meetings would you expect?
So I think it's really different depending on the type of client that we're working with. So even though we're working with staffing and recruiting companies, like we work with executive recruiters, IT recruiters, people that just focus on marketing, just focusing on sales. And so what I would say is there is a massive range. It's really hard to say. I think the beautiful part about our tool is we monitor the meeting rate based on these campaigns. And so, I could tell you like our data for like our SDR team is at 10%. And so it's like a real science behind what we do. For every 100 people that I put into a campaign, if I just use the campaigns that we've been working on, the ones that we've like really built up to where they are, I know that I'm going to get 10 meetings. And so for us, like our goal for our SDRs is 20 meetings, right? Like they have to go out and book 20 meetings a month. And so it's really simple. Like, how do I get them to put 200 people into a campaign every single month? Because I know, like, if that's their goal and that's the goal that we need them to hit, like everything is going to fall into place. And I think that there are people that are really good at making calls and converting people. Like they They put in 200, they might convert 30 meetings. And then I've got other people that are newer that might not be as skilled on the phone where, they might have to go out and put more accounts because their conversion rate's going to be a little bit lower because they're not as good on the phone. So like,
yeah,
you have to evaluate. I can't say like there's this set number across the team. It's like, it's what you put in it. And you gotta put the time in. You have to have good messages, because if you just put bad messages and just send them out, you're not going to get results.
Yeah, no, it's fair comment. And I guess would it change as well, kind of at the levels or seniority of people you're targeting naturally within a company as well?
I think for sure. Like, yeah, like, I mean, like, if you come with like a value prop driven campaign and you just blast it out to 10,000 people, maybe you get a few responses. But if you see like, hey, here are all of the open companies that have account executives in the HR tech space, and I'm going to send them these like awesome HR tech sales professional, like the conversion rate's just going to be higher, right? And so like it's hard to get that data of like what it is overall, but we have clients that are really good, and we also have clients that are bad, but they're still getting a lift with our tool, right? Like it allows them to get more because they're able to evaluate it and constantly work on their process, find areas of opportunity where they can get a lift.
Yeah, look at the data behind it. I can't believe how quickly time is going. We've got 3 minutes left. And the final touch point we wanted to speak about was, surprise, surprise, the power of the phone. So Scott, happy for you to kind of share what you guys are seeing behind this, the data, and kind of the results as well, all around the phone.
Yeah. And so like you said, 52 million pieces of outreach, 60% of the meetings that people book through our platform are through the phone. And so it is hands down the most effective channel when booking a meeting. And I think it just gives you the opportunity to talk to people, put your name behind it, and also say, hey, I'm a real human that wants to talk to you, which is automatically helping you stand apart from everyone else. Leave voicemails, right? Like I think that's really important to just like give it that human touch, because if they see a UK number come across and you don't leave a voicemail, that it's just not, they don't know who you are. But like I think about our tools, like, or any sort of like email, LinkedIn, text message, it's just like bombing the grounds to really warm up that phone call, right? And so definitely want to be leaning on the phone. And then the other thing is, if you have a way to evaluate when they're opening up the emails, that's a great time to call, is within 30 minutes of them clicking on an email, because they're at their desk. Right? Like they have just seen your email, and then your pitch is a lot easier. Hey, I sent you an email about this. Did you happen to see it? It's just
I know we saw it.
Yeah, it's a really easy cold call that you don't have to like really like sit there and be nervous about and think about.
Yeah,
it's a really easy time to pick up the phone. So I would highly encourage everyone to do it.
Yeah, because we frequently get asked, what is the best way to start your BD? Should I go phone call first? Should I do, like you say, a marketing candidate, market my candidate first, like the touch points ahead of a phone call? And I think from what you're saying, actually having a phone call maybe slightly, after some of those touch points already, it gives you reason for that phone call as well. And you can engage the prospect based on the content or conversations you've already had with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Well, we are literally running to 30 minutes. So thank you so much for everyone joining. I know we have literally kind of touched on the surface of those points, and there is so much data and information that SourceWhale can help with. So as I say, for anyone who has kind of signed up with their email during the registration process, you are going to get a link to the recording of the session, but also SourceWhale's kind of one pager on the takeaways of what we've kind of spoken about, and some actually really kind of tangible takeaways for you guys to put into place in terms of those steps. In the email, there's also going to be links to Scott's LinkedIn profile and also mine. So if anyone wants to connect, follow up, and ask any more specific questions, please feel free to reach out. Love to have a conversation. Anything you want to touch on your end, Scott, before we close out? Thank you so much for joining.
I think I'm all set. Thank you so much for having me, Maria. It was fun.
No, it was a great session, and I know it's going to be of huge value to all of our listeners. So we will keep in touch and speak with you soon. Thanks all. Want help mapping out your US expansion? Visit us at www.pwc.com. pgcgroup.com to learn more or schedule a free US expansion opportunity session with one of our consultants.